calling to order a regular meeting of the members of Board of Education of the Goshen Central School District. So today, Monday, April 26th, 2021. Due to an abundance of caution with regard to the spread of COVID-19 and in accordance with Governor Cuomo's March 12th Executive Order number 202.1, today's meeting is being held in the District Administration Building and live streamed through Zoom and YouTube. We'll be pushing our executive session to the end of the meeting tonight. So next on the agenda is the pledge of allegiance. Saying moment of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda is privilege of the floor. We have no comments. Next on the agenda is President's report.
Probably should unmute. Next on the agenda is the President's report. And just to follow up from the last meeting on close contact and proximate contact, I think we'll be getting a press release out here either later today or tomorrow with updated guidance. After many meetings and with our lawyers, our district physician and administration, the board's happy to update this guidance for all. Next on the agenda is the legislative update. Mark Pilgrim. Thank you. Next on the agenda will be the superintendent's report. Mr. Connor.
Okay, thanks, President Pucci. Couple of things just to let the board know. Tonight at 6:30, a video is being released. It's the Orange County High School principals. And really, you have to see it. We all agreed in Orange County that we wouldn't release it until tonight at 6:30. But it really is an outstanding video by the high school principals. Our Jim Quinlan is the one that did all the filming, taping, cutting, everything. And what a job. Wait till you see this. So when you get home, click on, find it, take a look at it. It lasts about 10 minutes, but it really is an outstanding job. Pretty comical, a lot of fun, a lot of laughter in it. And I think it's just a really great message. And I think it's something our kids need to see and faculty need to see and communities need to see. So I think you're going to be very, very excited about that.
Is it on our website?
I hope it will be. It should. We'll find out. Yeah. Yeah, you bet. You're going to like it though. The next item is the President Pucci already talked about it, but the release will be coming out about our proximate contact. I think this is an outstanding move. I think it's going to provide a lot of clarification, and it's going to help in really keeping kids back, keeping kids in school. It all comes back to, we'll work with our school doctor. When we have a case, we'll determine what the proximity is. But the good news is that if we're all in the same room together and I come down with it, but yet nobody's had any kind of contact with me, that's within 6 feet and or, for 10 minutes or less, or 10 minutes or more, it's not going to be a problem. Kids will be able to remain and stay in school. But once again, it's going to be something the faculty will work with when we get the cases, and we'll talk and converse with our doctor, and then hopefully be able to keep kids in school. Yes, sir.
When is this going to affect? Is this back now?
It will, no. Will it go in? It'll go out tomorrow morning.
Okay. There's a second grade class today.
I know. Were they the remote ones in second grade?
I'm not sure.
I think it is. We did have, once again, a lot of our cases that are being reported are students that are on remote. So when that happens, there's no quarantining or anything of that nature. Yeah. Also, we learned this morning that Garnet Hospital is interested in setting up a clinic in our district. Our head nurse, Nancy Ellison, and Jen Martin, because we're talking about high school kids here, will be on a Zoom meeting, get a lot of questions answered, how they're going to roll it out. But they would like to roll it out sometime in the very near future and use us as a school site for anyone who's 16 and up to, if parents and everyone are agreeing to it, can get the vaccine. So I think that's really good news too. So that's something we lobbied for back here about a month ago. And I kind of thought it was kind of a dead deal, but they did come back to us. Garnet Hospital said, yeah. And we don't really do anything. It's Garnet Hospital sends the folks in with the vaccine. So
They're going to be at BOCES
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
They're starting there.
excellent.
And the only thing that they request is access to our system. So, which is a wireless connection, so they can log into their software that can document vaccinations.
I think it's excellent, though. I think it's a great opportunity for kids in our district. So hopefully many people will take advantage of that. I know since our last meeting, there's been some discussion about when our state aid runs came out, there was a lot of talk about pre-K money. And my first look at the whole thing and talking with Henry at Scotchtown, we know we have one room there, but if you go in that room, it's so packed full of things because, well, district-wide, we have a huge storage problem. You know the boxes and the units we have even at the high school. So that room is like one table in the middle for if you want to have small meetings. And other than that, not a whole lot of space for, I call it UPK, Universal Pre-Kindergarten. But what we have learned is we're having conversation with Minnesink and some of the other districts. And we know that if you have childcare providers in your district, and they're of the non-religious organizations, that we are working with them, we can team up with them. Obviously, there's paperwork that has to be done. Someone will have to oversee the program. And even then, with the 3 or 4 child care agencies that we have in our district, I'm not sure how many slots are available though. I know one already reached out to us and said, we're interested. So what does that mean? I have to be careful because I don't have all the information right now, but my sense is that we were granted, and just so that you know, every school district in New York State has a line for UPK. But what the case is in most districts is that you deal with space. If we were to have every 4-year-old sign up for UPK, we'd have 175 kids. Now, I don't know if 175 kids will show up. So if we were trying to accommodate them in our building, and it would make sense to be at Scotchtown, and GIS isn't any better off. Middle school, certainly not, and high school. But if you keep them age appropriate, that's 5 classrooms because you'd have an AM, PM to accommodate that many. If you tried to do all of that for a full day, you're looking at 10 classrooms. But what we know some of the districts have done is that they team up with their local child care facilities. And what it usually comes down to is that, let's say we have 175 sign up, and yet there's only space at those facilities for, say, 100 kids. What they do, what they've done is they've gone a lotto system. I don't want to get ahead of myself. We're really at the beginning stages, but this is something as we get more information. Look, I've always been a huge supporter of it. We started UPK up in Niagara Falls. It's a great program. Kids on average learn about 8,500 more words. Their vocabulary is enriched that many before they come to kindergarten. And let's face it, if they come to school and even if they go through the whole bathroom routine and the, going through cafeteria or getting a tray, and it's huge. I mean, so when they come in as kindergarten, it's like, oh, this is no big deal. We've been here, done that. But the downside of that is we're going to have to wait and see. We might not have enough slots. And if we do, what districts have done is they've gone to a lotto system. Correct, Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Carter's done a lot of work on this the last couple of days. And so is Louise Lynch in trying to dig into the financial part of it. So the community needs to know and the board needs to know that we're going to do everything we can to reach out and work with those local agencies. And because they do have to be accredited programs too, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sure I left stuff out. I'll let you speak to it now, Jay.
Yeah, so in our preliminary conversations, there's not much more to add than what Mr. Connor has spoken of. There is a systematic approach to, in a sense, kicking this off in Goshen. Some legwork to do by way of screening letters, checking interest levels and so on, working with local agencies that are established. We've had a great couple of conversations over the last few days. I do have another scheduled conversation, just reaching out to some colleagues that have already established programs, just to see what best fits our needs. We know what our allocations are at the moment as far as the lump sum, but actually coming up with what may be a per pupil expenditure, that's something that we've got to work on. There are costs associated with running a program as well from the district level. So we've got to iron that out as well. But I don't see this as a major issue for us. I do believe that collaboratively we could work together to get things up and running, of course, with proper guidance, the right information, and really checking out the interest levels. The one thing I will tell you is that traditionally, you do want to try your best to get your numbers organized by the time you roll into late June. It's beneficial for all, including those local agencies that would be housing our children, teaching our children. So these are things that we've got to work out, and we're certainly trying to do that as quickly as we can, while still being very diligent in collecting the appropriate information.
Correct me if I'm wrong, we would set the curriculum, correct?
So, there are provisions, of course, by NICEAD that has to be followed. What we would do is actually make visits to ensure that A, the facility is correct, and that B, all of the curriculum is in place and being properly delivered, if you will. Even materials, there's a process similar to what we had gone through with a new local agency that was developed over the summer months. And it is constant, not daily, not even necessarily does it have to be monthly. But, for instance, 2 times a quarter might be highly appropriate to make sure that everything is in order, because we are allocating funds, and this is a grant that has to be written and submitted to the state, much like our Title I grants and so on. So there's a lot of work that goes into establishing it and then monitoring it properly.
Can I ask a real quick question? With the funds, do they roll over? Like, for instance, if we couldn't secure a facility in time for June, do you have to use it in the 2021-22 school year, or is it something, like, how does that work with the funding?
So, I would have to defer to Louise, and I don't want to misspeak. That would be why I would try, to have Louise speak to that. However, I would tell you that the allocations come out yearly. So what happens to the funds if they're not spent? I would imagine, they stay at that level, and for lack of a better term or phrase at this point, would return to, the government's general fund.
And I would say they don't accumulate.
Yeah.
I think the longer term question, and I kind of expressed this previously, is if we sense a high demand, we do have space. We have space here. We have space upstairs. And I think that would be more of a capital project to be able to get around ADA compliant upstairs. And that would be a capital project and different things. So I do think it's a longer term conversation that the board's can have in future years.
Quick one. What would be this 10,000 foot overview? Like,
how would this work? The pre-K, how would it work? The funding, just the, layman's terms.
So the funding is made available. We understand what the dollar amount is. Of course, at this point, to secure the funds, to actually receive the funds, we would have to go into the business portal and work on, actually writing the grant. I have not seen the questions as I've never done it. However, I would imagine it's much like what we do to secure our Title I, Title II, et cetera. With that being said, the funds would come in, meaning that what we had written in the portal would be approved at the state level. We would secure the funds. While all that was going on, I would imagine that we would already send out our notifications to all of what we would term as our pre-registered students. And our registrar would be handling that. And she is aware of, many preschool children. It's just part of what we do. The mailings would go out, gauging the interest of the parents. It's a really difficult number to predict. There's no crystal ball for that. Some of the people that I have talked to, some of my colleagues, for instance, one in particular, there were times where between, their elementary schools that house kindergarten students, they may have had an enrollment of a cumulative enrollment district-wide of about 400 to 425 kindergarten. And they may have received about 150 universal pre-K applicants. So once you send out the notifications, once you advertise properly on your site, make people aware, there are other issues that have to be handled, such as committee meetings, much like we do with our stakeholder groups for Title I and 2, 3, 4. There are things to iron out there, which is all a part of the oversight of someone who is overseeing the program. Then when you collect those envelopes of those that are interested, if we're not doing it in-house, I would imagine that much as others do, we would go into a lottery system. So you keep everything secure. A simple number system would probably suffice. And at that point, you literally draw at random with multiple people present to secure everything, to make sure that it's done on the up and up, if you will.
Are the numbers based on?
So as they come in, the first one comes in, gets a 1, the second one comes in, it gets a 2, but it has no bearing on anyone winning the lottery. It is a simple identification. And then, you understand what a lottery system is. You can put them all in a box and draw blind. You can attach a number and wheel and ball system to it. And
I'm sorry, what I wanted to ask was the funding overall, is that based on enrollment or is that just?
Yeah, I don't.
We get what we get and then we do the lottery.
Yeah, we get the number and then we've got to figure out the per pupil expenditure.
Do we know that? That's the question I was gonna ask. If it's $3,000 a kid, and
I don't have
then
that.
you have 100 kids, you have 100 slots.
Yeah, I don't
If it's
have that.
6,000, you got 50 slots.
I think what you do is if you had 200, you had 175, and we could accommodate all 175 with the 3 or 4 childcare facilities. Well, that less the administrative costs,
Right,
it would be 175 into that total amount.
right.
Okay.
You have to take the overall lump sum, you have to subtract out the administrative costs, and then you have to see what the per pupil may be. But you have to work, I would imagine we've got to work with those that are running the facility to see what their tuition fees are. That would help us to determine how many we can actually have on the lottery system. And then you would draw a line at that number and everybody else would be on a waiting list. And it is not uncommon for those that have applied to be a part of it to pull back. And with the 3 or 4 facilities, for instance, not that that's a solid number, there may be the next person up on the wait list that doesn't want to attend the facility that has an opening. So it drops to the next. And again, this is nothing that I have done with managing universal pre-K program. It's all, in premise thoughts of a procedure that we may use.
So it's really until we know who wants to enroll.
Yeah.
We'll know the numbers that we can provide. basically. No, yeah, I understand all that. Yeah.
I am, are we good with that?
Are there any other questions?
I just had one question now. if the actual program, as you say, is, if they're at different sites, then we sort of would funnel money to those sites. If the program ended up being within our school district, I believe are aid ratios. Your high needs districts, I think, would get quite a substantial reimbursement. Do you or Louise have any idea what our ratio would be?
I do not.
I think at one point, Middletown, I think they would get probably up in the 70s, maybe, 70%. I don't think we would, but I was just wondering how that would work.
So remember, this is.
And I could be wrong about the Middletown number. I mean, it was
Sure.
something I discussed with someone 5 or 10 years ago.
We're kind of at the onset of everything right now. Just starting out these conversations most recently, last Thursday. So we'll continue to gather information and hopefully get you as much as we can.
Right,
And
thank you.
essentially everything that we've talked about is in premise of what may be utilized, not what we are planning to utilize. Doesn't mean that we won't utilize it either.
Right.
I'm good. Yeah, that completes my report.
Jake,
completes-
anything else?
I do not have anything else. Thank you.
He's not here. Next on the agenda will be. Any motion? Judy? Tom? Be it further resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the board of education approves the consent agenda as presented. All in favor?
Opposed? I'd help if I unmute. There is no old business. We will move to new business, 13.1. Need a motion to approve entering into an agreement for services for educational and management services, Inc. Allison and Mike. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves entering into an agreement for services with Educational and Management Services, Inc. to provide services in the filing of school-age stack forms into the NICED and stack online verification system for reimbursement of special education costs effective July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 at an annual rate of $18,000. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to execute the agreement. All in favor? Opposed? 13.2, I need a motion for approved agreement for services for Manhattan Psychology Group, PC. Jeremy? And Allison. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves entering into an agreement for services with Dr. Chelsea Rosen, Manhattan Psychology Group, PC, to provide consultation services to a special education student effective for the 2021-2022 school year as follows. $450 per hour rate up to the required hours on the student's IEP. $3,000 daily rate, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. $2,000 half daily rate, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to execute the agreement. All in favor? Opposed? 13.3, I need a motion to approve agreement with the Westchester Institute for Human Development for Assistive Technology. Tom? Martha? Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the agreement between the district and Westchester Institute for Human Development to provide comprehensive assistive technology evaluations in one or more of the following disciplines: speech language pathologist and or occupational therapist, effective for the 2021-22 school year as follows. One discipline, $1,380. 2 disciplines, $1,890. Travel costs per school visit, $25 under 20 miles, $50 over 20 miles. And training fees, $225 an hour or $560 for 3 contracted hours. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent of schools to execute the agreement. All in favor? Opposed? 13.4, a motion to establish club funds and high school extra classroom activity fund. I think this is for a gardening club. Judy? And Jeremy? Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools that an account for the following club be established within the extra classroom activity fund at the high school. Club fund is the gardening club. Faculty advisor is Julia Sherritt. Thanks, John. Be it further resolved that the faculty club advisors are authorized to sign disbursement orders, receipts, and otherwise oversee this account in accordance with the district policy and the procedures outlined in the New York State Education Department guidelines entitled The Safeguarding, Accounting, and Auditing of Extra Classroom Activity Funds. All in favor? Opposed? Board member issues?
I just had a real quick one. Just for the next meeting, can we just follow up and resume conversation about summer programs? I know that we had just touched base on it, but just, based on if we have any money in the budget. Trying to get some kids back up to level. I know that that's a big undertaking, but if we can just
Yeah,
talk about it.
we're prepared to
Oh, you
speak a
are?
little bit to that tonight.
Oh, good.
And I'll start by saying that, don't forget the 2.8 million that we received in, aside from our aid, called federal stimulus money. 20% of that is to be used toward exactly what you just mentioned, Allison, student remediation, catching kids up. You have until 2023, I believe, to use that money, or 2024. Mr. Carter and the principals, we started this conversation at my cabinet meeting several meetings ago. I said, guys, put your thinking cap on. Let's get ready to go with something this summer. Let's have a plan in place. I know the principals are working with Mr. Carter. You want to give them an update on that, Mr. Carter?
Sure. In brief, the principals met last week to discuss their potential plans for extended school year and enrichment programs. Of course, extended school year is separate because it's a mandated program within our PPS. And that's something that we do every year except for last year live. The principals are working to figure out what type of program they can put together for, a number of students for the summer months. What they're working on is what that will look like, of course, programmatically. And then they're trying to select times that work within the building. We do not have anything solidified. However, this is something that we're seriously working toward. So I would imagine that we'll have more solid information with dates, times, and what the program will look like as we move forward. But it is a definite thought, a definite conversation. It's something that Mr. Connor has asked for.
Would that be a lottery system too? No?
I don't think we're looking at a lottery system as much as we're looking at students that need enrichment, students that need support to get, back to grade level where they were. We're also looking at, some of the enrichment programs that we can bring in that are software based in addition to the personnel that would be utilized. So again, there are many things to iron out as we plan, but those conversations are happening as of last week.
Yeah, the team seems pretty excited too. The principals are understanding summertime would be the beginning of this. And certainly, I know there's some discussion of buildings that it will be ongoing throughout the school year. So it isn't that we have to do it in the 21-22 year. This can be extended out a period of time, I believe, up to 3 years. So, I appreciate their efforts. I think we'll come up with something, but we don't want to wait until July 1st. The team agrees, let's not wait until we have a new superintendent to try and put that together. It's something we need to do now. Get the ball rolling, and let's see what we can pull together. So I'm excited about that.
We also met with Al Molnickel today to discuss meals for the summer months, including the potential summer programs. So he's well aware of what we're trying to achieve, and we're well aware of his budget. So that was a discussion that was had earlier this morning.
Well, we hope, go ahead, I'm sorry, Martha. No, we're well aware of the fact that, as you are, that for all of next year, it's free lunches and breakfast. So, and where does that fall? Where does the money come out of? Let's see what we can do with this federal stimulus money. If not, it's already a mandate. Every school has to provide breakfast and lunch to those that want it. You know, I can't say enough about Al. Al's got such a great attitude. Like, he's always willing to let me see what I can do. I'll put this together. I'll make it work. And so really, I think he'll have a better idea of how it's going to impact him and his program. He'll have an idea of when we know how many students will be attending that summer program, that enrichment program, whatever that might look like. So guys are working hard, and as we get more information, we'll be back to everyone.
And I
Maybe-
apologize, I didn't have my mic off, and I think that your mic is on mute too.
Yeah, I know. That's why I
I
took
just
my
realized
mask
it.
off to try.
I just realized it too. that I
Yeah,
had
to
my
try and
mic,
get,
sorry.
hope this is coming through, John.
I got mine on, so you guys
Sorry.
can
Yeah,
spread your.
I'm not
COVID.
used to being mute.
I'm sorry, I just realized it.
Martha, do you have a question? Okay.
No such thing as a
sorry.
mute superintendent. Yeah, I know. I gotta check that.
Okay, I'll speak nice and loudly.
Is it prompt you? It's gonna prompt you now. I clicked the button to prompt you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Because you have to click on the screen. It just said,
What do I do?
If you just scroll a little.
double mute.
Right. Oh, I was looking down there. Thank you. Thank you so much. I have been reading about possible approaches to September, and I know that probably and hopefully all the students would be back in school, but in the event that not everyone is, and there are some remote, there has been quite a bit written about the possibility of having, for example, one teacher do the remote section, or some teachers doing the remote section. And I was wondering if we had looked into that. I mean, it makes sense, because as a classroom teacher, if you have your class in front of you, it's a lot easier if you just obviously are focusing on those students. So, I'd just be interested in what you're finding, what the research is, and if it's something we were considering.
Well, it's something we certainly take back to the cabinet. I meet with them every Wednesday, so I know Mr. Carter is writing things down, so we'll put that on our agenda for
Thank
discussion.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are you, just so I'm clear, you want to have a teacher dedicated to people online and a teacher dedicated to the students on site?
Well, I've read about different models of that. But for example, all right, you have some students in an Algebra 1 class. Well, it would be, rather than have every teacher who's teaching Algebra 1, maybe have one student at home, and you're dealing with that. You would have maybe one teacher that would do a remote class for all those that are there. And it would do more of a return to, I would say, normalcy in a classroom if a teacher isn't doing, if every teacher doesn't
Yeah, I
have to
think if you
do what
ask
they're
most
doing.
teachers, they would say it's very hard to do both at the same time.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think it's, to your point, I think it's probably, if we're at that point, and hopefully we're not at that point. But if we're at that point over the summer and we see it, we'll have to, explore the dedicated remote teacher approach. Right? I think the idea here would be to continue to fine tune our approach, right? Last
Right.
spring, when we were thrown into it, we weren't, we did mostly asynchronous. This year, we were able to create a lot of live instruction. Next year, I think we figured out that, the combo live instruction and
Great.
remote is very difficult for them to do, and we try to keep on fine tuning that to where we get it right. Hopefully, everybody's back in.
Exactly.
But I do agree, if it's a possibility that we're not, and there still is remote, I think it's something that we'll definitely explore.
Mhm.
Any further? So need a motion to go into executive session? Jeremy? Mike? Be resolved, the Board of Education will enter into executive session with the not intent to reconvene the business portion of the meeting for the review of employment history of a particular person.